Well, it's Friday, so I thought I'd wrap up the week with some MCU, DCU rumors and whatnot. MCU, DCU. Well, we'll start with MCU, head over to DCU, and then go back to MCU to wrap it up. How about that? It's only two universes. Only two. So, once again, casting rumors about Henry Cavill going into the MCU, and there was multiple roles. The last time around was speculating that could he be Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four, and wondering where was he even being talked about and being in that. And but now it's looking like no, Wolverine is the role, which was also suggested a time or two, even going back a ways, that he was being sought to be the new Wolverine. Something of that nature. Now it's looking a bit more serious that he has been cast as a Wolverine. So Giant Freaking Robot had the story of Henry Cavill will appear in Deadpool and Wolverine as a multiverse variant of Wolverine. That's right. There's all kinds of multiverse shenanigans, well, at this point throughout the MCU. And the same will be true for Deadpool, and acknowledging that there's two different Marvel universes from the old Fox days of X-Men and all that, and Deadpool can be a bridge character for the two going forward and all that. So you got Hugh Jackman in there, of course, and then here comes this other Wolverine they'll meet up with in it, and it says his version will be wearing a long brown coat when he shows up, and this will be Cavill's first appearance in the Marvel universe. Well, yes. He was busy in another one that is now defunct. So, could this just be a one-off? More than likely, probably. The brown coat aesthetic to it seems to indicate he might even be playing a much older Wolverine, as a la Old Man Logan, and with a lot of makeup on. So the idea here is, oh, wow, he could come back as some other character, because there's a lot of fan support about him being cast as Captain Britain, most prominently. There were rumors of him being cast as Hyperion, which would have been funny because that's the Marvel version of Superman. And that the rumor was that he would appear as a one-off in Loki Season 2 as that character. Whether any of that had any possibility as something discussed or a direction the show could have gone, yeah, that's always possible, but I doubt it, having seen the season where there's not a whole lot there. So I don't know if they were going to spend the money to show that amount of other universes and whatnot. It's too bad, because that's, the Squadron Supreme and Hyperion and all that is very much a part of the multiverse lore as how Marvel approached it. But it didn't happen, and probably was never going to. The other characters, of course, was primarily Captain Britain, and then lately for Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom. And the thing about Doctor Doom is, like saying, the rumor is Henry was approached, they talked to him, and he agreed to play it. The deal was significant enough to him to do it. And I was wondering, well, Captain Britain's not that well known, but he is British. Maybe that would be something he'd be interested in. But Doctor Doom, especially being cast when they're trying to get this Fantastic Four franchise off the ground, provided it's successful, this Doctor Doom would be a very important character. And not just because of Fantastic Four, but the MCU overall. And that would be, to lose out on Superman, what can Marvel give him? And you get a villain like that, would have been a big deal. Provided the MCU can survive its current troubles. But that would be a very important character. And I could understand him being lured into that. But now it looks like, no, that was not the case. Unless the theory goes is that he'll be in so much makeup as an old man version of Wolverine in the Deadpool movie that he can play another character. I'm dubious of that. But nevertheless, a Wolverine appearance is pretty significant. But if it's just a one-off thing and it's for the gag and whatnot, and he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, because he's going to be very busy with his Warhammer thing that he's heavily involved in. And then there's going to be this Highlander reboot with him in it, stuff like that. So his plate's pretty full already, and how much time can he commit to something? But he would probably make room for something big. To get the Wolverine role from Hugh Jackman would also be a significant opportunity, provided they don't mess it up, which the odds are they will. But nevertheless, I could understand him jumping into that. So if he appears as an older version, fine. But when they get their X-Men started for MCU, he comes back in the role, but without all that makeup, and he's a younger version looking of Wolverine, and there you go. So it's still, boy, if they cast him, are they going to cast anybody who's actually Wolverine's height? Because Wolverine is actually kind of short. Hugh Jackman, Henry Cavill, they're tall guys. But who knows? And the odds are, even within the Deadpool movie, there will be multiple Wolverines. So, with Henry Cavill just being one. And then of course, the nature and the comedy nature of Deadpool, there's kind of that gag about it. So there could probably be quite a few other stars for a few minutes of footage shows up as Wolverine and whoever else, in the multiverse shenanigans of Deadpool 3. So there we go. This one looks like it's probably true. I'm leaning towards Henry Cavill will be a Wolverine. The Wolverine? Well, I don't know. They'll probably go with some other actor ultimately, and whoever their new Wolverine will be will probably show up as well in there as they move forward. After that, I don't know that Henry Cavill will be involved in the MCU. And of course, if they could give him Dr. Doom if he stays in the mask all the time. And again, makeup and stuff. He takes the mask off and he's all, scarred and stuff. Yeah, they might do that. Of course, they're still going to probably show him in his early days or something when him and Reed are in college and together and all that. Hey, you look like Wolverine. Oh, well. But it's probably just this and that's that. So there you go. Meanwhile, his old job was over at the DCEU, now defunct, to be replaced by DCU. And boy, there's still things about it, like how does that make sense and whatnot. And some guy, Blue 8881 Blue, was talking to James Gunn online, and he responded and said that yes, Peacemaker takes place after Superman. That's his Superman movie, and Peacemaker season 2. I guess you could still call it that. So he says, including season 1. He said season 1 isn't canon, but no. So it's like, oh, it isn't canon. So that's interesting. How does this play out? Because not only is there a Peacemaker season 2, there's the Waller series, which spins off after the events of season 1, which result in her being outed by her daughter. And she's this top super duper pooper scooper secret under the cover boss. And that's all been exposed. And so I took it to mean, and especially that's kind of a cliffhanger there for the character. And that would be, how does she deal with this, and what does she do to better things for her to get back in power or whatnot, however they're going to play it out. And instead, and I'm guessing they'll still follow that somewhat, but that's the messiness of this. And there wasn't, it's like, oh, the Flash movie reboots everything. It didn't, because he didn't have the time to put enough scenes in there to make that work. Because if you look at that film and you realize it wasn't finished, and they couldn't, yet again, I mean, that movie was butchered over and over again with 3 different approaches and versions for it right up to the last minute, and they still spent money on a Super Bowl ad for it and all that. I don't, and there just wasn't time for it. It's like, yeah, if you had a movie like that to where you still have some nebulous connection to the DCEU for your new DCU, and like, yeah, some of those events happen, and of course in the multiverse idea and aspect and narratives is like, yeah, there's some things that are the same on this alternate Earth, but they're also very different here and there and that kind of thing. And that's always been the story of that, especially with DC and the like. And so certain events happen for these other versions the same as it did in the previous one. And so, yeah, you can get that, but narratively speaking, overall, it's a bit choppy and messy. So, yeah, how to do that if they'd had an actual transition film between the two universes, which The Flash was advertised as, but that was not true. Because, again, they didn't have the time or money to waste on it to try to make that happen. And because at the end, the Justice League, and it is the DCEU Justice League, even though, Wonder Woman and Superman weren't really there, but you knew they were based on Cavill and Godot and all that. And they met up with Peacemaker at the end. And it's like, oh, boy, you got to erase that now, or say it never happened, or, he's just going to say it's not canon. Even though the events are. Because I'm assuming, unless they're going to, all of a sudden, Peacemaker's, his personality and everything will be totally different. I doubt it, and I think he'll still be having his buddy adventures with Vigilante and so on and so forth. But it's just, it's like, this has been the story all along for DC Films. There's all these stumbles, and they can't right the ship for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's stuff beyond anyone's control, but there's quite a bit that, you could have done this better. A lot of executives panicking for no good reason, stuff like that, and here trying, let's just scrap it and start over. Yeah, you could understand that, and yet, but not quite. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But would have been better if there was an actual, if The Flash had actually been a transition movie for the two universes, and that would be a nicer package deal. It didn't work out that way. Meanwhile, someone else was asking him, hey, I've always been curious about this, but especially which, or maybe especially, specifically, I guess is what he meant to say, which executive hired you to write Superman around August 2022? And he said, Mike DeLuca, of course. What's with the spammy screenshot? Oh, because he did a screenshot thing. So it says Mike DeLuca hired him. So that's interesting. And of course, it makes sense. He was in charge at the time. So was Superman going to be part of the DCEU, or was it separate like the Batman? And he said always separate. So this might have been in the thinking that his Superman would be like the Batman, a separate thing unto itself. Don't know if there would have been a shared universe or anything. And yet at the same time, DeLuca seemed to be, it seemed like him and Abdi were going with the idea the DCEU would continue. And then all of that was just based on, I guess, the performance of Black Adam, which is a bit unfair, especially since Black Adam, oddly enough, when you include it with all the post DCU announcement films of last year, Black Adam was the best performing of the batch. It was denied China. Aquaman ended up, maybe by now Aquaman probably did better. And Aquaman, that wasn't a bad, most of those films weren't all that bad. There was problems, but man, the wind was really taken out of the sails after that Black Adam and Henry Cavill, and then the announcement that none of it matters. So you can't rule that out. But nevertheless, between Aquaman and Black Adam, Aquaman had access to China and Black Adam didn't. So one wonders how much more it could have done for it. I don't know. We'll never know. In the multiverse, we could find out, but I don't know how to get there. So anyway, that was the deal. But it's an odd approach to it. That, maybe because of the success of Joker, they thought, hey, you know what? We could do all these standalone type things. And if they're really popular and hot, well, that'll branch off into its own thing. And if the DCU continues to stink, we'll just drop it and move on to the Gunverse or whatever. I don't know. And I don't know if he was going to connect it to Reeves' The Batman or be its own thing separately. I don't know. I was seeing someone said there were some rumors about that J.J. Abrams' Superman would be the Reeves Superman for Reeves' Batman world. It sounds like the kind of thing Abrams would jump on, but and I know they said that movie's still in development, but I remain dubious of that, and really would rather it stay gone. But anyway, so that's interesting of how close that was. And then I'm guessing Zaslav looked at the numbers and said, no, it's too complicated, too expensive. We need cheaper stars. And then we'll sell the hell out of it, promote it and whatnot. So we'll see. And they really believe in Gunn, so they went with Gunn. All the other players were shown the door for the most part. I mean, Luke is still there and very a big wig at at Warner Brothers, but he's Gunn. They decided to go with his vision, and I don't know what their metrics were per se, but they decided that was the better bet. Meanwhile, the Batman, speaking of Matt Reeves and everything, has been delayed yet again, and this is a bit curious. Whereas the Joker, which was made on the cheap and yet managed to bring in $1 billion, so that's highly significant. And now the Joker 2, they're saying the budget is $200 million. I don't think that's a good idea. But nevertheless, that was the big selling point. Whereas the Batman was a bit more expensive to make and didn't do all that great. $700 million. Hey, that's a lot of money. It's not if it was that costly to make and promote and all that. And so if it was a smash, a spectacular hit, then it seems like there would be more ground to fast track it and all this sort of stuff. This is a bit serious because you're getting closer to when the DCU's Batman would be introduced. That Gunn has hired Muschietti to do, unless they're going to blame him entirely for the Flash. I don't blame him. I think there's a lot of factors there that's not entirely his fault. But nevertheless, whatever, that Batman will be different. And then you would have two competing Batman franchises. I just don't know. I think as it remains, the saving grace for the Batman is the Penguin show. If that thing turns out to be a smash hit, then that goes a long way of maintaining Matt Reeves' Batman verse. Meanwhile, his other idea of a show, which was the Arkham Asylum show, has now been brought over to the DCU. So as this goes, I don't know. Could he end up being the brave and the bold director and not Muschietti? Don't know. And that's the compromise there. And I think his contract with them expires. Is it in 2027? Something along those lines? And this would put Batman 2 at the earliest in 2026? And man, I don't know. It's close. And what if Batman 2 hits $1 billion, over $1 billion? Then you're like, oh, well, you got to change gears again. And the simpler thing was always, I thought, just make the Robert Pattinson Batman your DCU Batman. They say, oh, Matt Reeves didn't want to. Well, he doesn't own this stuff. They want to hold on to him. So I guess that's the deal, but he's fine with his Arkham show becoming a part of DCU. So it won't be the same show that it initially was going to be, because that was going to be in the Batman universe. Now it's not. So it's curious and odd. But it's one of those things, like, just because something's announced and there's a happy face on it doesn't necessarily mean it's a done deal. Just ask Henry Cavill. Yeah, I don't like that. I was very upset about that, but there is kind of Anyway, so we'll see. And then I think the Penguin show is very important. So if I was very disappointed in the Batman film. It looked cool. His atmospherics. I think Robert Pattinson can make a great Batman. That sort of thing was all fine and dandy. The plot doesn't work. It fizzles. I just had serious trouble with it. It's one of those things. Don't think about it, and it's good. But if you're a lot of people did. It's got its serious hardcore fans who will be very irritated at me for saying that. But if you are a big supporter of it, you'd better watch every episode of The Penguin and promote that, Unless it's really bad, don't be a liar. But I mean, come on, a crime drama. It seems like that would be easy to pull off. Well, it's not easy, but should be able to, and that'll go a long way. If that thing is really popular, hard to do with streaming, it is, but if that is a very popular show, then I think things look really even better with the Batman 2. But right now, this is kind of disturbing that it happens this way. Meanwhile, back at the MCU for Daredevil Born Again. Well, apparently they're casting 4 transgender characters. No, Daredevil himself will not become transgender. Don't know what to make of this per se. How does that work? Are they going to have this whole narrative of trans people being victimized by Kingpin's goons or something, and Daredevil, defends them or what have you? Or it could just be one of the many cases that Matt Murdock deals with. Something along that nature. But apparently, the leaked storyline, now this may or may not be a spoiler or what have you, but it's rumor. So it's said to feature dirty cops who work for the Kingpin, who at the end of Echo is either running for mayor at this point or already may be the mayor of New York City. So Kingpin either is running for election or wins the election. Yeah, right. So apparently those dirty cops set up White Tiger, a black guy, who gets arrested for murder. It also seems as if those cops use the Punisher symbol, similar to law enforcement today, which is that smearing of it and all of trying to be in line with Black Lives Matter and whatnot, even after multiple police officers were murdered during that time. And a lot of you, even the comic book Punisher creator was on board with this, and and they just destroyed Frank Castle in the comics and all that stuff, and they had to change his symbol. It was just ridiculous of the freak out over that. But to use that as a narrative, that's a bad idea. You really should not do that. But I guess they're gonna, and so it. I don't know what this is. So I don't know how transgenders would fit into that one. My guess is it's one of the episodes and he's defending them. Or, I mean, I don't know if they would be so bold as to say they're prostitutes and they're getting brutalized by dirty cops or something. Don't know. Well, that could happen. Meanwhile, earlier on, there were some leaked scenes from the filming of it, and what appears to be the Punisher killing the White Tiger. What if the White Tiger turns out to be a trans man? Yeah, maybe that's the... They did replace in the comics White Tiger with a female version, I believe. And so, I don't know. But that was just, I think the original had died or was lost or whatever, and then a woman succeeded him or something like that. He didn't transition or anything. But I took it, I mean, does the Punisher kill him after he's been framed for murder and falls for this deal and that sort of thing? Or is this one of the dirty cops disguised as the Punisher, also framing the Punisher after the White Tiger has been framed? But that's what it looks like in these scenes. It's just a hooded guy, but you can see here and there that he does have the skull on his chest and all that sort of stuff. And then it looks like he shot and killed the White Tiger, and there he is, So, what could all this mean? Maybe it's more akin to that, and it's police officers on the take working for a Kingpin, and for whatever reason, maybe the White Tiger became a problem for Kingpin and wanted him eliminated, and then at the same time, kill two birds with one stone. It frames the Punisher for the killing of White Tiger and that sort of thing, and that might be the deal. I don't know. Man, they're banking everything on the Deadpool movie, and but really a Daredevil series, again, hard to achieve anything on streaming. They really need They really need this to work. And if they're just going to be preaching about identity politics and the police and all that, it's over before it began. So hopefully not, but just have to wait and see, like everything else. Finally, oh no, the Blade being retooled yet again. Apparently Michael Green is the latest guy to come in and rewrite the script. Best to them, it's always sounded pretty terrible, like another one where a male hero gets replaced by a female character, and that seemed to always be a main part of the plot. Which sounds really stupid, but if they keep going back to it, what's the point of hiring someone else? Michael Green worked on, he wrote Logan, I believe, and so that is somewhat interesting. So rumors said the plot of Blade was going to be set in the 1920s. Apparently in the new rumor, that's not the case anymore. I don't know why. I mean, as vampires, they can live a long time, so you could theoretically do this. But whatever. The Blade would be training his daughter or a female protege. Not clear if that's his daughter or not. It's also been said that Lilith would be featured as the villain who's going after Blade's daughter's blood to create an army of daywalkers. And that Lilith's weapon is the Ebony Blade. Hey, that's Black Knight's sword. And that's what rings kind of true, that this could be elements of the plot, because, Black Knight he didn't realize he was Black Knight yet, but he was in Eternals. And that was the end teaser about him. And there was talk this was going to be connected to Blade at some point, but oh boy, nobody liked that movie, so maybe they're dropping all that. I don't know. It's also been said that the flick will be set in they're recurring the 20s, and the young child, a girl who might be either his daughter, Dracula's daughter, or another vampire child. And so this is very similar to the plot of Logan, where Wolverine ends up taking care of X-23, who was actually his clone, but for the most part is his daughter. And that's kind of the relationship they developed in the film. And so you can see a very similar narrative here, where at first maybe Blade doesn't know that this girl is his daughter, but so why is her blood so special? Well, she's similar to him in the fact that he's a daywalker. He's a vampire. He has all the abilities of a vampire, but he can exist in the daytime because I think it was his mother was the vampire, but his father was human, and so on. It's that kind of thing. And he passes that on to this girl, who's the key to it all. and that's what's the trouble, is a lot of those plots just aren't that great, and hopefully it doesn't bring it down, but who knows. But trouble keeps happening. I would have thought this would be on the chopping block. It's probably going to get delayed again, and I think like for the year it's scheduled to, is that next year or 2025, so pushed back to 2026. I'm reading this on Cosmic Book News, by the way, and that would make sense because the slate already has 4 movies. You could push one into the following year, unless they're really desperate to have a movie for October, and Blade would fit for Halloween and all that. But more than likely, this one gets pushed into 2026. So, but hopefully, it isn't just another one of these male hero one and done, or whatever, and the girl hero is the real hero, and he's just a dumb idiot who gets insulted all the time. Because the actor, Mahershala Ali, the stories of him being upset about it, probably spot on. So anyway, there we go. We end on Blade for this little tour of rumors. Where does it all go? Well, who knows? But we'll find out, because you know what time does? It tells.